Was ist das, Alter?
Du Maulwurf. Du hast keine Hobbys. Und ich weiß schon, wie das geht. Gerne geschehen.
What the fuck, ich kann mich halt echt nicht mehr daran erinnern, dass ich sowas gemacht habe.
Ich wollte es für die Unsi-Sender tun.
Ja, schau, der Livestream läuft.
Auf YouTube?
Ist das überhaupt mein Kanal?
Ja, sicher.
Na,
Schick Link, Alter.
wir können das teilen,
Wie heißt er?
Hier ist man, hab's eigentlich jetzt.
Ein bisschen schütt.
Schreibt der Ton geht. Test. Ja, was? Okay, gut.
Das ist sogar Hintergrundmusik.
Nein, das
Achso,
geht
nein.
vor, das-
Leni-Schule.
Alter, wir haben einen Zuschauer. Easy.
YouTube hoch.
Das ist ein Livestream.
Livestream machen. Hier ist. Bitte liken, abonnieren.
Schaut zu den Livestream.
Ich bin dagegen, ich habe nicht meine Einverständniserklärung.
Die hat
Du hast überhaupt keine Rechte, Anton.
Schick immer, wenn der Haken war.
Was ist das? Für das jetzt wird. Jetzt wird es gleich verwendet.
So rauchst du weißt.
Dauert noch voll lange.
Okay, so. And sorry. Now we could start right now, I think. Alright, dear Ambrosi, dear classmates, today it's our turn to make our presentation, and our topic is nuclear energy. Well, glaciers are melting, sea levels are rising, and wildlife is becoming extinct. It's becoming clear that humans have caused most of the past century's warming by releasing heat-trapping gases called greenhouse gases as power our modern lives. The result is what is known as global warming. It is causing changes to the Earth's climate and long-term weather patterns that varies from place to place. As the Earth spins, the newly produced heat swirls with it, picking up moisture of the oceans, causing droughts and floods. It's changing the rhythms of life that all living beings have come to rely upon. The levels of greenhouse gases have gone up and down over the Earth's history, but they have been fairly constant for the last few thousand years, till recently. Through the burning of fossil fuels and other greenhouse gas emissions, humans are enhancing the greenhouse effect and warming up Earth. Scientists often use the term climate change instead of global warming, because the climate change is different in different areas. As the Earth's average temperature climbs, winds and ocean currents move heat around the globe in ways that can warm up some places and cool some other places. It also changes the amount of rain and snowfall. Now, with concentrations of greenhouse gases rising, Earth's remaining ice sheets in Greenland and Antarctica are starting to melt as well. The extra water could potentially rise the sea level significantly. Furthermore, due to the weather becoming more extreme, there will be more intense major storms, the rainfall will become heavier, droughts become longer and drier, and animals, plants, as well as humans will lose their habitats. In order to avoid such calamities, an international treaty was signed by several countries. The Kyoto Protocol committed its signatories to develop national programs to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. It obligates most of the signatories to mandatory emission reduction targets, which vary depending on the unique circumstances of each country. Other signatories to the UNFCCC and the protocol, consisting mostly of developing countries, were not. The protocol entered into force on February 2005. Several means were provided by the protocol for the countries to reach their targets. One approach was to make the natural process called sinks, that's planting trees that remove the CO2 from the air. And another approach was the international program called Clean Development Mechanism, or short CDM, which encouraged developed countries to invest in less developed countries in the technologies and infrastructure where there were often significant opportunities to reduce the emissions. In return, the investing country could claim the effective reduction in emissions as a credit toward meeting its obligations under the protocol. An example would be an investment in a clean burning natural gas power plant to replace the fire coal plant. A third approach was emissions trading, which allowed participating countries to buy and sell their emission rights with other countries, and thus laying economic value on emission rights. Countries that fail to meet their emission targets would be required to make up the difference between their targeted and actual emissions, plus a penalty amount of 30%.
Now let's move on to the nuclear power plants. What are exactly the advantages of these plants? A nuclear plant is not cheap to build. In fact, it costs a few billion US dollars, and it takes several years to build them. However, once the plant is online, nuclear plants are very cheap to operate. The uranium fuels used in the plants are relatively cheap, and the amount required is small. While the cost of the fuel is minimal, other required costs, including security staff and plant operation staff, are also very cheap, considering the large amount of energy produced, even by smaller plants. The other main operating costs of nuclear power is probably disposing of nuclear waste and spent fuel growth. The cost of disposing of nuclear waste is relatively low. A variety of techniques exists to reprocess spent fuel and compact remaining waste, so that the need for more expensive long-term storage is minimized. Next point is nuclear energy independence. According to the World Nuclear Association, the United States leads the world in terms of the megawatt capacity of its nuclear generating stations. US is followed by France, Japan, Russia, and Germany. As a percentage of the amount of electricity generated, France leads the way, utilizing nuclear power for over 75% of its electricity needs. This is by far the most in the world. This may be due to the conscious choices by the French made in the early 1970s, around the time of the first oil shocks in the Middle East. Despite a lack of natural resources such as oil, natural gas, or coal, France today is energy independent with electricity generation. The large initial investments that France made in nuclear is now paying off. Now, the advantages and disadvantages of nuclear energy itself have made this alternative energy source one of the most controversial on the market today. Nuclear power source. The heat generated by splitting uranium atoms in a process called fission is used to produce steam. This steam powers turbines, which are used to produce the electricity. Nuclear power stations are set up in a multiple-step process that has been designed to help to contain the energy and many of its negative byproducts. This process alone is the base of several advantages and disadvantages for the energy source. One advantage is the expense. Less uranium is needed to produce the same amount of energy as coal or oil, which lowers the cost of producing the same amount of energy. Uranium is also less expensive to procure and transport, which further lowers the cost. Next point is the reliability. When a nuclear plant is functioning properly, it can run up to 540 days continuously. This results in fewer brownouts, Stromausfälle, or other power interruptions. The running of the plant is also not contingent of weather or any other supplies, which makes it more stable than other forms of energy. Next point is that nuclear power plant emit no greenhouse gases. In fact, it has some greenhouse gases when the plant is built or because of the mining of the uranium. But these emissions are only as high as that with other renewable energy sources such as wind power. And this lack of greenhouse gases can be very attractive to some consumers. Now let's move on to the disadvantages. One reason that nuclear energy falls under fire so frequently is due to the many disadvantages it brings. First point is the raw material. Uranium is used in the process of fission because it's a naturally unstable element. This means that special precautions must be taken during mining, transporting and storing of the uranium, as well as the storing of any waste to prevent it from emitting harmful levels of radiation. Next point is water polluting. Nuclear fission chambers are cooled by water. In both the boiling water reactors, short PWRs, and pressurized water reactors, PWR. In the PWRs, cold water enters through a primary pipe and secondary pipe remove the heated water away. That means that the coolant is not in contact with the reactor. In the PWRs, water runs through the reactor core. So if there is any leakage of fuel, the water can get contaminated, and the contamination is transported to the rest of the system. Next point is that used nuclear rods are immersed in water in a so-called spent fuel pool to cool them before they can be transported for disposal. Radioactive water can leak out of doors in the pool when the seals that keep the doors inside the fail function. Other pollutants released by nuclear plants are heavy metals, toxic pollutants, and that harm plants, animal life, in aquatic bodies. Water is released into the atmosphere after being cooled, but it's still warm and damages the ecosystem of the sinks it flows into. Next point is the waste. When the uranium has finished splitting, the resulting radioactive byproducts need to be removed. While recycling efforts of this waste product have been undertaken in recent years, the storage of the byproduct could lead to contamination through leaks or containment failures. Next point are the leaks. And the nuclear reactors are built with several safety systems designed to contain the radiation given off in the fission process. When these safety systems are properly installed and maintained, they function adequately. When they are not maintained, they have have structural flaws or were improperly installed, a nuclear reactor could release harmful amounts of radiation into the environment during the process of regular use. If a containment field were to rupture suddenly, the resulting leak of radiation could be catastrophic. Next point are shutdown reactors. There have been several nuclear reactors that have failed and been shut down that are still in existence. These abandoned reactors are taking up valuable land space and could be contaminating the areas surrounding them, but they are often too unstable to remove.
Now we will move on to some nuclear disasters. The first one is Chernobyl. On 25th April 1986, prior to a routine shutdown, the reactor crew at Chernobyl 4 began to try for a test to determine if the turbines could provide enough energy to keep the coolant pumps running if there was a loss of power, and if they could keep them running until the emergency diesel generator kicked in. This test had been carried out at Chernobyl the previous year already, but the power from the turbine ran down too rapidly, and so new voltage regulators were required. By the time the operator moved to shut down the reactor was in extremely unstable condition. They wanted to turn down the capacity of the reactor to 25%, but then the power plummeted down to 1%. And when they then tried to increase the power again, a massive power surge ensued. The interaction of very hot fuel with the cooling water led to a rapid steam explosion in production and an increase in pressure. The overpressure caused the cover plate of the reactor to become partially detached and jammed all the rods. Intense steam generation then spread throughout the whole core, causing an explosion and releasing fission gases into the atmosphere. Shortly after the second explosion, fragments from the fuel channels and hot graphite were thrown out as well. 2 workers died as a result of those explosions. The graphite and fuel became incandescent and started a number of fires, causing the main release of radioactivity into the environment. Over the last years, workers tried to close the erupted reactor. The last attempt was a big dome that was finished in 2017. It covers the whole reactor with the former attempts of covering. Another fact is the other 3 reactors still work until 1996, 1993, 7 and 2000, despite the radioactivity. The second grand nuclear disaster is Fukushima. It happened 2011, and immediately after an earthquake, the active reactors automatically shut down their sustained fission reactions. However, the tsunami disabled the emergency generators that would have provided power to control the pumps necessary to cool the reactors. The insufficient cooling then led to 3 nuclear meltdowns, hydrogen air explosions, and the release of radioactive material in units 1, 2, and 3 from 12 to 15th March 2011. On 5th July 2012, the Fukushima Nuclear Accident Independent Investigation Commission, called NAIIC, found that the causes of the accident had been foreseeable and that the plant operator, Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO, had failed to meet the basic requirements such as risk assessments and developing evacuation plans. On 12th October 2012, TEPCO admitted for the first time that it had failed to take the necessary measures for fear of inviting lawsuits or protests against its nuclear plans. The United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation and World Health Organization report that there will be no increase in miscarriages, stillbirths, or physical and mental disorders in babies born after the accidents. Controversially, however, an estimated 1,600 deaths are believed to have occurred primarily in the elderly who had earlier lived in nursing homes due to the resultant poor ad hoc evacuation conditions.
Before I move on to the next topic, I have two questions for you. The first one is, how many operating nuclear power reactors do you think are all over the world? Marco, what do you think?
About 200.
400.
There are about 450 operating nuclear reactors over 30 countries all over the world. And in 2017, these provided 2,506 billion kilowatt hours per hour. That's about 11% of the world's electricity capacity. And the second question is, how many reactors are currently being constructed? The new reactors.
I guess.
Someone found the hand out. Yes, that about 50 power reactors are currently being constructed in 15 countries all over the world. Notably China, India, the United Arab Emirates and Russia. One of these reactors is Olkiluoto in Finland. The construction started in May 2005, but delays have been encountered, particularly on the reactor section. Construction of the Finnish Olkiluoto 3 nuclear power plant reached a milestone in June 2010. After installation of the reactor pressure vessel in the reactor building. This marked the beginning of the installation activities of nuclear components, coinciding with the startup testing of electromechanical systems. Heavy components of the reactor, such as the steam reactors and pressurizers, were installed by 2011. The project was originally scheduled for a 2009 opening, but has been delayed. The owner of the plant, I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong, Teolisun Voima Oyuchu, short TVO, earlier in December 2011 announced the commissioning of the plant in 2014, resulting in a loss of more than 2.8 billion US dollars. The costs of the project are not fixed yet, but they are above 3 billion US dollars. Next important dates are some tests in December and the start of commercial use in the first quarter in 2019, over 10 years from the beginning of the construction.
Now I will talk about nuclear energy in comparison to renewable energy. Well, many people think that nuclear energy is far more efficient than any other renewable energy form, and thus they are built. But if you look closer, that's not always the case. On this diagram, you can see the energy, how much the energy suppliers cost for each megawatt hour they produce in the EU. The purple color represents taxes and transport costs. But looking at the blue part of the diagram, you can see that nuclear energy is more efficient than utility solar energy and offshore wind. That's wind wheels built in the ocean. On the other hand, gas, onshore wind, and alright, we are looking for an alternative for both. So onshore wind is more reliable than nuclear energy since we have the Alps here. The reason why offshore wind is so expensive is mainly because Europe doesn't have that much opportunities to build those windmills in the oceans. So we could say that every region could have an alternative renewable energy form for the nuclear energy. In Africa, the solar panels. And yeah. That's mainly it.
Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please ask them.
Now we will come with our questions.
No questions? Okay. I have a very interesting topic. Here I have the good split. From that we have the most of our information.
HTTP.
There are really
Sichere Webseite,
Scan.
das würde ich nicht.
articles about everything with nuclear energy.
Now we have some questions for you. Hopefully you can answer them.
Lesen question.
First of all, what are the effects of global warming? Anyone? Anna?
Melting glaciers and rising sea levels for
Yes, that's right. Vicky, do you have another answer?
dying forests.
Yes, that's also correct.
I have
Yes.
Global cooling.
Wow, that's,
extinction of
it
wind.
depends on where you are. But maybe
It's not
yes.
global.
It's not global.
No.
Any other answers? You can't be wrong. I shouldn't.
BitConnect.
Alright.
The next question is, what is the Kyoto Protocol and what's your opinion about it? Marco, for example.
It's from February 2005. Every country had to develop national programs to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions.
That's right. And what's your opinion?
It's a good project. Project.
Okay. Maxi, please.
I think it's a good idea, but I don't think that developed countries should invest that much money in poor countries because they have to sustain themselves. The poor countries have to sustain themselves because we our European countries don't always give the money because it creates a culture of taking. So they always expect others to give the money and they don't try to use themselves.
But they also don't have the knowledge to build those countermeasures. They don't have the knowledge to build solar panels for example.
They could pay for the knowledge, like ask Europeans to please come here.
You need to instruct them to go there.
Yeah, exactly. They can pay for the knowledge. They can pay for them to teach them.
Auf den Spuren des
Well, they don't have the money to buy it. Well, we invest in those instructors and send them over.
And send them back. Okay. They want to go there, would be possible and a quite good idea to as well. So let's go on.
Outline some advantages of nuclear plants. Advantages of this advantage.
I've got a question now. Did you almost pronounce it advantages?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Rather American, but it's also okay, but the really correct is advantage. But it's also okay with advantages. Okay, let's go on.
Das war nicht lustig.
It runs continuously.
Yes. Yes, it
Once
runs
it's
continuously.
Energy
Any other
compass.
advantages? Pedro?
It's independent, it's cheap, and it's reliable.
That's correct. It's independent, it's cheap, and it's reliable. Any other? Or we move on? Alright, move on.
Then, hello.
Sure.
Was it?
Those is Germans.
Who was opening the door?
Secretary.
The secretary, okay.
Now the next question is, what are the disadvantages?
Where is the
Okay. Any other disadvantages you can think of? Think about. Philip? You know some? No. Matthew?
High costs for building the nuclear plants.
Yes, that's totally true. Any others?
Alright. What were the reasons for the disasters of Chernobyl and Fukushima? Was Chernobyl the reason? Any idea? Yes.
Over pressure, so it exploded.
That's correct. Any more detailed explanation? Alright, I guess not. Alright then, Fukushima. What happened?
an earthquake, and tsunami.
Yes, that's right. And what did the tsunami do? Petros?
To destroy the cooling systems of the river.
That's right. It also blocked the control rods. Thus they lost the control over the reactor.
So, next question is, when was the beginning of the construction and the estimated finish of Olkiluoto 3? Markus?
The start was in May 2005 and it's going to be finished in 2019.
It's the last date we know. We don't know exactly if it's going, it starts running at this time, but we hope so.
It's supposed to.
Yeah. And when was the original date the Olkiluoto should be finished? Markus?
2017.
The first date was 2009. So it took 10 more years to finish the plant. It's a long time.
Do you think renewable energy stands a chance against nuclear energy? Yes, your opinion?
Not yet, but I think with time it will stand a chance against it, and yeah. That's all.
All right. Any other opinions? Just some opinions.
Stefan, for example. Think
I don't think that renewable energy will have a chance against the nuclear energy.
Why not?
Only if they stop developing the nuclear energy.
so you think they should stop developing and
No.
develop the renewable energy?
No, the renewable energy would only have a chance if they stop developing the nuclear energy. But I didn't say that they should stop developing.
Because as far as I know, for example, Olkiluoto estimated start in 2019, the plans were from 1990 something, I think 1991. So do you think that they developed new techniques in this time?
Once again, please.
The plans of Olkiluoto, the nuclear plant in Finland, they were from 1991, I think. So do you think they, over the years, they developed new techniques, the nuclear energy?
Maybe. Wie Gott oder was?
Okay.
Also ich sowas wissen.
Now last question, what's your opinion about nuclear energy?
Pros, cons.
I think it's the future.
Okay.
Still the future.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think the future is in renewable energy, and I think that they will develop new
Cool, that's
techniques
good.
which will make us
Coffee
be able to
fusion.
use our sources better.
Fish, das Tintenfreiburg.
Would be the better solution, of course.
Nein, nicht Kernspaltung, bitte.
Also Fusion, ja, Fusion. Fish.
Can you give reasons why you think it's
Yeah,
the
sure.
future?
Because the nuclear energy, we develop it more and more. I think we find ways to eliminate the trash that we send into space.
What do you want to send to space? The waste?
Yeah.
There's
The
enough,
waste? The nuclear waste?
there's enough waste in space already around the Earth, like basically the whole
Gleiche.
atmosphere is surrounded by garbage.
Ich nur Müll, das schickt man nicht nochmal
Well,
auf.
it will in the long term.
Verstehe die Aussage.
Hä?
So,
Sicher
do
nicht
you think
Fusion.
that would be a safer way of dealing with nuclear energy?
I think it will get safer every year. The problem is in some countries like Romania, they aren't.
Musst du nach der Mission.
Von hier ist Zeit. Gott sei Dank.
Safety level of all the plants, of course. Lucky.
I think the next step in developing nuclear energy would be nuclear fusion, and that would be a much better way to get energy.
A cheaper way and a safer way.
Yes.
That-
The only
that
problem
part
is the
What do you mean with nuclear fusion?
Kernfusion.
But a nuclear plant is nuclear fusion.
No, it's fission. It's
Division, and the other one is fusion. So there is a new way of
it's not a
doing-
new way, but they aren't able to do it yet. It's the same way like the sun does.
Really?
What's that?
I didn't know that exactly.
Water stove.
I'm not very informed about all of this.
Wasserstoff.
Wasserstoff, right? Oxygen.
Hydrogen.
Hydrogen
Fuses
fuses into helium.
into helium.
Yeah.
So where did you learn, or where did you all get all of this information from? Did you learn it at school?
We are informed
About
about the topics.
the topic. So I am not really very well informed about those topics. I think male persons are better informed, and that's great. But we need to get some new information.
Yeah, as far as I know, the fusion is better because you can produce much more energy than your fission, and the radioactivity is much lower.
Yes, but less waste as well.
So eine Lettkammer, die sind, weil es much lower ist.
Ja, hier stirbst du, wenn du
Was reden der schon wieder da? Ich hab keine Ahnung.
Das ist Lachen.
Ja.
Es gibt kein Perpetuum mobile.
Wie beende ich das jetzt?
Nur mit USB-Stick.
Ja. Ja, kann ich. Wenn du einen USB-Stick hast. Wie beende ich den Livestream?
So schaut's gut aus, wie sie
Müller, wie beende ich den Livestream?
Was hast du gemacht? Was hast du gemacht?
Stamm bis links, ja.
Hey, bye bye. Watching, we like you and ciao. Hat eh gut ausgeschaut machen.
Aber wie Ben ist.
Wenn das oben bogen ist, musst du zurücklassen.
So, da.